Mr. Chair, for over half a century, the war and conflict on drugs has caused more harm than good. What was that? First, exacerbating public health issues, increasing prison populations, and last, destroying lives and communities across various countries around the world. At the government side of the House, we push for a policy transition towards an approach that focuses on humanism and rehabilitation, which is not only more human, but also scientifically proven to be more effective in reducing drug abuse. I'm going to explain my arguments in two substantive speech. First, I'm going to explain why status quo is not enough and maintaining the current policy or system will only worsen the circumstances. Second, I'm going to more detail about the mechanism how this motion will run to be implemented. Let's proceed to the first point. What has happened in the past and the status quo and why we must regret that? First, policies of war and conflict rather than resolving issues have resulted in increased violence and criminality without reducing prevalence or accessibility of drugs. Why is that so? I'm going to give you 4 reasons. First, this approach only targets amateur users and small-scale dealers rather than large networks, often leaving the core structures of drug syndicates intact and active. This occurred in the Philippines under President Duterte, whose anti-drug operations have killed over 20,000 civilians. It's alleged that the Philippine police executed suspects by fabricating evidence, planting drugs and weapons in the homes or of workplace of those targeted. These operations frequently violate human rights, including the right to live, the right to a fair trial, and protection from cruel, inhuman, and/or degrading treatment. Second, war and conflict drive up the prices of drugs in the black market, which in turn increases the profit incentives for drug syndicates to continue operating and expanding. This one provides greater incentives for cartels to find new and more sophisticated ways to smuggle drugs, thus, in our side, expanding their operation despite high risks. Essentially, the war and conflict approach to drug cartels only causes these groups to become more ruthless, better organized, and more innovative in their struggling methods. And the third point, our third reason is that the war and conflict approach escalates militarization and violence, which in turn increasing resistance and retaliation from the drug lords, prompting them to enhance their military capabilities. It is no surprise that not only does prevalence of drugs in the black market increase, but the illegal arms market also grows. Moreover, resistance and retaliation from middle and lower class communities escalates because they are targeted, their families targeted, and they view the government as an enemy they must fight. This one proves to you that even the police and military personnel grow to resent the government, feeling sacrificed by the government to fight the drugs lords and civilians who are their relatives and friends whom they should be protecting. What I'm going to explain to you is that this hatred will grow from the grassroots and a public trust in the government will erode, leading the police and military to have less incentive to continue these operations. Last reasons, the conflict and war approach exacerbates the stigma against drug users, pushing them to have margins of society and decreasing their likelihood of seeking help or rehabilitation from government institutions. This stigmatization increasingly target already marginalized and discriminated groups such as Black, Hispanic, low caste in India, and etc. With pre-existing negative sentiments, their social existence is further decimated. It is no wonder these individuals are easily targeted and recruited, ladies and gentlemen, empowered by the drug lords. They are turned into distributors and suppliers. Victims of drug abuse find safety and protection with the drug lords rather than from our governments, ladies and gentlemen. Second point, policies of war and conflict rather than succeeding in combating, have instead increased in a financial burden and resource allocation of governments. They have to purchase more weaponry, recruit more civilians as military personnel, and implement more civil surveillance tools like CCTV, which is inevitably erodes public privacy. This one, at the promise that it has caused a shift away from funding for rehabilitation and empowering non-punitive, ladies and gentlemen, non-punitive human alternatives. The government's ability to combat drugs from the grassroots through education, social reform, and economic empowerment for vulnerable class is now practically impossible. Forget having money for incentives like low interest loans. The current government is using that money to buy weapons instead of the focus on the rehabilitation and their civilians, ladies and gentlemen, and pay compensation to families of police officers who died in these operations. Let's proceed to the mechanism to make this case more tangible to begin with. First, on our side of the house, there will be an investment and better accessibility to harm reduces methods, such as provision of a clean range, self-consumption space, and offering naloxone to prevent overdose. Second, the decriminalization of drug use, meaning that we eliminate criminal penalties for possession of small amounts of drugs for personal use, so replacing them with other measures like fines and rehabilitation. Third, in our side, ladies and gentlemen, the programs like methadone replacement, the opium users will be intensified, which can help reduce addiction and the risk associated with strict drug use, which is our current problem right now, which is uncontrollable. Fourth, we will allocate more funds to improve drug education in schools and communities to help prevent drug use. Effective prevention programs will involve families, which in our status quo right now is not happening. Last but not least, in our side of the house, we are going to have a cooperation with other international countries to control cross-border drug trafficking and support global prevention efforts that can help reduce drug supply and address these issues more effectively. This means we will strengthen border controls, monitor ports, airport, and etc. That's what we are going to implement in our policies. The motion stands. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is the last government. To respond, the speaker spends 7 minutes and 45 seconds, 7 minutes and 45 seconds. Now to respond to the case, let's call the speaker of the opposition, the country.
Oh ya, buat teman-teman, bantu jadi judge juga ya. Nanti bakal ada link buat kalian decide siapa yang menang. Oke, buat advantage ya.
Okay. I have good and bad news here for the affirmative term before we start our side of argumentation. The good news is that the Prime Minister has successfully provided us with many illustrations of the severity of the current conditions in fighting against drug kingpins. They told us that they have exhausted all measures, but it failed and we have to do something else. We think this is too simplifying the actual problem, and we think that this is such an unfair entrance to the affirmative team in today's debate. Here's the bad news. The Prime Minister has only given you the part of the truth. So we are going to be the only team that can provide you with the reality is and why the war and conflict approach is still the way to go. My response and arguments are going to be intertwined. On the first issue, regarding the repercussions of war and conflict approach, the affirmative team argues that we should regret the conflict and war approach because it has caused many casualties. Some were caught and killed without a fair trial, and it has led to societal resentment towards the government. We contend that these reasons are not sufficient. The issue with illicit drugs and substances that even though you educate society about how harmful these drugs are and how you should stay away from them, it's not going to work. Even with the financial incentives that the affirmative team promised to give them so that society will not work for the drug kingpin. Why? There are two analyses here. Number one, the drug kingpin controls the supply and has the ability to determine how much market coverage they should aim for with their supply. What does this mean? Even though you try to cut the demand by strengthening education and campaigns so that society will not easily be lured by this drug kingpin, the drug kingpin will aggressively push these illicit drugs on them, from tempting them with money, from promising them protection, to the extent of intimidating them, If they refuse to take these drugs, they and their family will be killed. Additionally, this drug kingpin also collaborates with local police, local lawyers, and to ensure their operations are protected. This is exactly why cases of Duterte's aggressive operation make more sense. It is not that Duterte enjoys killing civilians, or it is not that Duterte try to target marginalized community, or Duterte try to make society resent him, but it is necessary given how pervasive and deeply rooted the drug kingpin has penetrated the society. Regarding the issue of fair trial, we genuinely feel that the absence of fair trial is bad from any moral point of view. However, as we said before, a fair trial requires substantial evidence and takes time. By the time we hold this trial, these corrupt police and lawyers may have destroyed all the evidence and hidden all the witnesses. We are also pressured by the time. We don't have the luxury to be fair in this particular circumstances. Thus, any government would definitely find it extremely difficult to deal with this predicament, especially since they operate with very limited resources like Indonesia and Philippines and only have very few people that they can trust, ladies and gentlemen. Second analysis, the only way we can weaken this drug kingpin or drug cartel are in two folds. Number one, by destroying their supplies. Number two, by fighting back. On destroying their supplies, it is important to understand that we need substantial military weaponry, guns, explosives, etc., to make this goal a reality. The target is to destroy all the illegal factories and headquarters, from the small to the large ones, from those in Colombia and to those in Thailand. So the affirmative might say that they are too costly. We say it is worth it. It is true because if we cannot destroy their supply and stocks, this drug kingpin will always have a strong currency to influence their target market. We told you that this approach has proven successful in Thailand under Thaksin Shinawatра's aggressive anti-drug campaign, which successfully cracked down hundreds of factories and jailed thousands within those cartel networks. This approach also proved successful under Plan Colombia, a collaboration scheme between US and Colombia. Secondly, regarding fighting back, we should also realize that this drug kingpin is militarily quite strong. They not only obtain their military arsenal from the illegal market, but also stealing from legal weapon market. This makes it quite easy for them to intimidate civilians and protect themselves. In regions where drug cartels operate with significant influence, they often challenge the very authority of the state, sometimes controlling large territories and population. This is why some local governments are afraid to confront them directly and instead just surrender. Consequently, some areas, suburbs, and instead or even districts are easily dominated and controlled by drug cartels. Considering how concerning this is, the only way government to respond is to match or even surpassing their military infrastructure and weaponry. This is to ensure that they will not lose to this drug kingpin. Therefore, investment in military and weaponry is necessary to crack down and to weaken this drug cartel. This way, not only we stop cartel from flooding the market with illicit substances, but also stopping them from recruiting people on the ground and underground to join them. So here's the conclusion. We're deeply saddened by the casualties that Team Affirmative has explained to us, but it is inevitable collateral. Otherwise, the drug cartel gets stronger and we cannot protect society, we cannot protect our nation. Second issue, regarding the alternatives of conflict and war. There are three analyses here. So affirmative teams say that the providing clear, syringe, or safe consumption spaces may reduce the immediate health risk, etc. We say that this is going to be counterproductive, as this will normalize drug use and this will also fail to reduce the demand for illicit drugs. As in the side of proposition, they will normalize the means for the consumption. B, we are content with the status quo that all drugs use should be regulated and should be dispersed under government, hospital, and doctors' prescription. We have also categorized the use of drugs, be it for medicine, research, etc. So we don't need to expand the list of legalized drugs, especially for recreational use, as what proposition proposed in today's debate. Lastly, on border control to avoid drug smuggling, we say that it is not mutually exclusive. That can also happen in our side. States should do it regardless because they need to protect their territory. So nothing specifically distinct about this proposal. In conclusion, our side combining decisive Military action and stringent enforcement targets the root of the drug crisis by dismantling the cartel's infrastructure and curtailing their operational capabilities. It is imperative that we adopt these measures to safeguard our communities, to restore the rule of law, ensuring a safer future for all. Proud to oppose.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker of the Opposition. The speaker spent 6 minutes and 58 seconds. 6 minutes and 58 seconds. Now, to respond to this, let's call the second speaker of operating government. The time is yours.
I think PM has clearly told you the way that you want to address these issues is obviously not through cruel treatment because PM has clearly told you that either way, drug dealers will find other way to smuggle their drugs. We should know that drug users are also the victim of their condition, the victim of their birth lottery, which forces them to be that way. I think that the terminology to fight against illicit substances like drugs by using war and conflict is only relevant when you live in the 20th century, right? That is to say, it can only be effective when wars used to be very common act, i.e. the wars between UNI Soviet and USA, for example, which made war a very collective identity that needed a handful of interference, both internationally and also internally. However, we feel that this sort of narrative is no longer relevant in the status quo. Societies are now more peaceful and they no longer want to interfere with wars and the suffering of war. Therefore, it proves to you why the narratives will never be internalized by your citizens, by your people, by your community inside opposition. If the concern coming from opposition is about whether or not you'll still have criminal punishment as a way for you to scare away these drug dealers, then sure, the answer to that is we still also have criminal punishment, but what's going to be different is how that the punishment will be internalized by the apparatus in the very first place. Whether or not it's going to be repressive or rehabilitative, that only exists under our side of the house. We want it to be rehabilitative so that these individuals can also be accepted by society at the end of the day. We want to change the stigma and the perspectives of society of how they view the drug cartels. But what else did opposition tell you, right? They tell you how they will need more investment of the weaponry to destroy illegal factories and also illegal headquarters. That is also their main policy, and they also provide you examples like Thailand, for example, who have successfully achieved this. Few responses to this as to why either way, if you destroy the factories and also the headquarters, the root cause of the issue will never be solved. One, drug cartels often thrive in areas with high poverty and also lack of opportunities. Simply destroying their facilities doesn't address the underlying economic issues that these drug cartels face in the very first place. But secondly, I also think that drug cartels frequently have deep connections with the corrupt officials, right? Which means that either way, the way that you can solve this issue is to fix the government officials first to address the certain needs of these individuals in which the economic problems is also their problem, right? Just because Thailand was able to do it doesn't mean that all countries also have a stable politics as them, right? Opposition falls under their premise. But moving into my first extension, right, on why war and conflict may only increase the chances for people to reoffend as rehabilitation is unlikely going to exist under opposition, right? I think it is quite clear on how it is unlikely for you to go to war and conflict with no weapons. It is as simple as when someone hits you, you might potentially hit them back. I think when government approach this issue by using war and conflict, it may also mean that there's a potential backlash coming from citizens to also fight the government back. This is mainly because there's an internal tendency for you to go against the policies and also the regulations because you feel like it is unfair, you feel like that the government has failed to address your issues, you feel like it is entirely their fault that you are forced to be a drug dealer in the very first place. What does this mean? It means that there's an increasing number of people wanting to fight back against the government. The prices of the weapons will also increase at the end of the day. People are competing to purchase the weapons and the market will also have a rising demand for more weapons, which only means that the government would also have to fulfill the market demand by providing the supplies. How will this be harmful, especially economic-wise? Few reasons. One, when the government focuses on fulfilling this demand, resources are going to be diverted away from essential sectors like education, healthcare, and also infrastructure. This only weakens fund, which can only lead to higher national debt or cuts to social programs. Over time, this can only strain the public finances and also reduce the ability to invest in areas that can foster sustainable economic growth. This proves to you two things. One, when the funds are allocated to the investment of the weapons, it would be hard for you to allocate it on the rehabilitation program. What does this mean? It means that either way, if you are able to criminally punish these individuals, it is unlikely for them to have a good rehabilitation program that can facilitate all their needs because all the funds already goes to providing them the weapons, right? Without the proper rehabilitation, individuals who are punished for crimes like drug dealing or other like illegal activities are more likely going to fall back into their criminal behavior because they also lack the support to reform. But if the rehabilitation programs are underfunded and also ineffective, it only increases the chances that people will reoffend. This means that if individuals are punished for their crimes, they're not provided the tools or opportunities to reintegrate into society, leading to a cycle of crime that becomes harder to break. It means that in order for you to have a good rehabilitation program, you want to make sure that there's actually an adequate amount of funding that is allocated to invest in the rehabilitation program. You know that the process of investing, it costs a lot of money, right? To purchase good counselor, you will need money. To facilitate the essential life skill programs, you also need money. Therefore, the allocation of these things is far more important. But other than rehabilitation, what is the process of addressing the issues of these individuals can only exist under our side? Why can it only exist through the implementation of the social contract to understand that the government have failed to address these issues? Therefore, that is the reason why that these drug dealers become the drug dealers in the very first place. When government have failed to address these certain issues, it is their role to fix and protect its citizens, right? Not to criminally punish them. When you understand that these individuals are economically struggling, when you know that these individuals are forced to do negative things to survive, then it should be the government's responsibility to try and identify and address the issues. What does it look like, right? I think Matia has already told you on why we want to open more job fields, opening training skill programs, and also educating these people. But why is it far better? Why is it a better approach than criminally punishing these vulnerable people who like war and conflict? Few reasons. One, I think that many people turn to illegal activities out of desperation due to like lack of economic opportunities. I think that by creating more jobs, the government provides individuals with legitimate ways to earn a living, reducing their need to engage in criminal behavior. This proactive approach tackles the source of the problem rather than just reacting to its consequences, right? But what is the likelihood? I think that when the individuals are offered these sorts of opportunities, they are most likely going to take it because when individuals have access to stable jobs and incomes, they're less likely going to resort to risky or illegal behavior, and having legitimate ways to support themselves and their families provide security, which decreases the appeal of criminal activities, right? But what is the comparison then, right? And how do we weigh this argument? I think in terms of war and conflict, sure, we might get the instant deterrent effect, but in terms of like actually solving the root cause of the issue, it only exists under our side, right? Opposition mostly talk to you on how through the war and conflict it may show immediate results because you're actually suppressing these individuals, but it does not address the factors that lead to people to actually doing these sorts of activities. What have we provided to you in this debate, right? It's something that is so crucial. We have provided you reasons as to why the process of managing and allocating the funds will be far better, and have provided you to the reason when that you can eradicate these drug dealers, you'll have to address the biggest concern first. Therefore, very much proud to propose.
The last speaker of the opening arguments had 7 minutes and 48 seconds, 7 minutes and 40 seconds. Lastly, let's call the second speaker of opening position. The time is yours.
Chat, chat, chat. Mana timer? Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. The softer the approach, the more people will engage with drugs at their problem side of the house. Our stance is clear. Aggressive solution for drug issues is necessary because we have characterized to you. We are not only talking about the common people that they talk, only about the poor people who sell drugs, but also the cartels, the mafia who actively manipulate and scout more and more people to involve with this action. To clearize, I'm going to state to you what do we do under our side. 3 things. First, we stick in the status quo. No matter what those those who commit the illegal conduct should be punished, should be jailed, but still in a proportional way. There will be a different type of punishment for those who consume and those who sell it, especially with the cartels. So you don't have to be so worried that these consumers that only consume will get like the same amount of punishment because it will be different anyway. But B, we keep utilizing the social stigma towards the drug user and the cartels to external mechanism to prevent them from committing these kind of things. But lastly, we will always describe the punishment and the consequences of using and distributing drugs as something that is very, very detrimental and scary from our side to maximize the deterrent effect and prevent people from trying the drugs at the very first point. All of these mechanisms are exclusive under our side because government cannot simply say that they still punish people and have a sense of deterrent. At the moment, they want to be more soft and validate the choice of people when they opt into drugs at the same time. At best, it is a house fence under the side of the house rather than panels. Four responses in here. First, the assumption of humanist approach such as education and rehabilitation is that people do not know that drugs are bad, so they must be taught by education that they talk about. This is totally wrong. All drug dealers, from children to cartel leaders, know that drugs are bad. They know that users will become addicted when they consume them. In fact, that they are happy that this happens because it means that the drug purchases will always be hide under their sort house. And many people still do this. The reason people want to become dealers is because the profits are very high and the effort of work is very low. This is an instant way to get money. There are people who deliberately choose a career and destroys people's lives for money, so morally it does not need to be embraced under our side. It's not because of the government like what Amira told you, it's within their active consciousness and active choice. That's why they need to be punished under our side of the house. Second of all, not here. All the benefits in their cases and mechanism regarding education and rehabilitation are not exclusive panels. Under our side, we still have education and socialization regarding the harms of drugs for people, e.g. in school, we still integrated in curriculum, for example. In work office, there will be a regulator for workers and the registration process still need you to attach kind of certificate stating that you are drug free. This kind of attempt still exists under our side. But rehabilitation under our side exists inside the jail and after the punishment happens. Exactly, the incentive of people to get into rehab under our side of the house is much more bigger. If in government you need people's inherent willingness to get rehab to report themselves, you have to wait for such a long time for that. Because there are a lot of reasons, especially financial reasons, for them to keep becoming drug dealers by the manipulation that they will get instant money that I already told you before. But second of all, under our side, we will get rehabilitation anyway because we are the ones who actively looking and caught the users and cartel at the moment that they are jailed, and that's where they get rehab directly. Go hand in hand with the punishment that we keep doing under our side of the house. We say it's much more better because what is exclusive under our side, we instill this mechanism with an exclusive fear in order that the user not repeating the action anymore. In terms of effectivity, we already win this point. But related to stigmatization of drug users, they taught you like stigmatization will make them afraid to do rehabilitation. Besides, it's not true. Because even though the education and rehabilitation at best case scenario is accessible under their side, they don't want to participate in rehabilitation. Because later, the money that they can get will be lost, right? On the government side, when the cartels are afraid is losing customer because their humanist approach, they will also increase their indoctrination process to fight the rehabilitation system. What's worse, because the cartel tends to be structured, they also have incentive and desire so that each member is loyal to them. So when there are dealers or customers who leave the rehabilitation process under this side, the cartels feel betrayed and will take the revenge through violence against you and your family. Exactly what Akbar told you. Finally, from the start, people are afraid to participate in rehabilitation to under their side of the house. That's why no solution for this. That's why we have to fight and do war and conflict at the end of the day. But thirdly, Amira told you about the social contract and what they have a moral human policy to the drug dealers. First, the idea of social contract is only applicable when you obey the law and government. The problem is here. We are talking about those who consume drugs, which is very illegal, right? We are talking about the distributors, which criminals who doesn't even obey the law at the very first place. point. They are also the one who are fulfilled, not the one who fulfill the social contract. So we question, why do you need to protect them who don't even obey the law, right? Exactly, if you want to protect the society, then make sure they don't get involved in this action anymore. Which by jailing them, when they did it, create the deterrent from severe punishment, makes people scared to consume it anymore. Because we also want to protect the society from this, especially they are the ones who obey the social contract. We are better because we choose to protect those who have chosen to obey the law, work hard and uphold the public morals, people who live by the rule of law and should be respected and protected more under outside of the house. And I think fourthly, about the retaliation that they talk about. Note here, retaliation from the drug dealers and attack by the drug dealers and mafia would still happen anyway. Therefore, to fight against them, we only have the alternative to pursue, which is war. Especially they never talk about how humanist approach can effectively stop the cartels. So we don't understand how they stop cartels under the side of the house, right? But fourthly, funding. We say that they don't have to worry about the money they come because it comes from the international collaboration because there's also the international issue. A lot of nations will collaborate. That's why it's very likely for them to help each other. That's why I think in terms of engagement and things about the solution that's more effective, we answer more, right? Aku already told you how organized and powerful the cartels are. Therefore, this soft approach will never stop them. And how affirmative proposal will worsen the status quo, making government under their side will perceive more vulnerable to lessen the punishment and validate the choice of user in consuming drugs. Therefore, the evil cycle under their side will never end. That's why all those reasons I beg for you to vote for opposition. Extension ko gak kebawa.
Alright, the last speaker of the opposition, please spend 7 minutes 23 seconds, 7 minutes 23 seconds. With that, that was the end of today's exhibition. Thank you so